our meeting of March 12th. Do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor? Mr. Rearick?
I'm abstaining because I was not present.
You're abstaining on the minutes?
Because I was not present,
wasn't here.
so I cannot vote.
Okay.
I mean, I probably wasn't either.
At one of the meetings.
Yeah, February 12th.
February 12th.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Announce.
Mr. Rearick?
Okay. Girls varsity lacrosse, Keith Corey. Girls varsity softball, Josh Muller.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to move up item 6C, wastewater treatment update.
Second.
Shall we vote?
Okay. All those in favor?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. With us this evening is Bill Smith, our engineer on the project, and he's going to give the committee a brief update of the proceedings that have taken place between us and DEM and the Recreation Committee and the Water Department over the last few weeks.
Good evening. If you already indicated, we made a few changes to the septic design plan. The old location that we had near the, I guess, the new softball field had some difficulties. There were several wells in that area over by Ledger Lane. DEM was concerned about nitrate levels in those wells with a septic system, 400 feet away. They've asked us to look at that, and what we did was we met with the Stonebridge Fire District and also the Recreation Committee, and we went ahead and they were allowing us, or they're in agreement to allow us to utilize some land just north of the entrance to the Ranger School for the septic system. We did some soil testing out there. The soil was actually better than the original location. Water table was a little bit deeper, so we were able to design a septic system accordingly. What we need to do is just obtain an easement from Stonebridge for the location of the septic system on the property. Just to give you an idea where we're talking about, this is the entrance to the Ranger School, and this is the water line easement that runs through there. There's a cleared area that runs to the power plant, and we would be just to the east of that easement. We're approximately 1,400 feet away from any wells, so there won't be any question about impacts to adjacent wells. Everybody else in the area is on town water, with the exception of a few of the properties on Ledger Lane.
So can you just show them where the driveway is in relation?
The driveway to the Ranger School is right here. This is North Brayton Road, where it ends, makes the turn, and the driveway comes in here.
So as you go up towards Ranger, it's right on your left, correct?
Where the woods are.
Yes, as you're going into Ranger School,
You can see where the power lines are, that's the easement.
So it's
Area.
where it's cleared there?
So it's not right there, it's just
just to
near
the east of it, to the
Just
right
east of it.
of that cleared strip that goes through there. So we've resubmitted the plans to DEM. We're trying to work out the formal easement from with Stonebridge. This area was earmarked for recreation to be donated from Stonebridge for some playing fields, some soccer fields, and this would be the parking area for those associated fields. We're not within the watershed of Stafford Pond. We are west of that, so that was one of the concerns, that we don't do anything that would be detrimental to the pond.
I know it's hard to see from here, but what we're installing is on the top center, right there, the two beds.
Those are the sand filters that will be installed previously in front of the playing fields.
Now, Mr. Martin has given verbal, Doug and Bill went to the rec commission, and they approved in concept, but we're going back again before them to say, this is where it's going, okay? And then we're going to go to the water board.
You'll get like a formal
Well,
vote.
yeah, we're going to get formal votes to say, this is where we're putting it. And we'll be doing that in the next week to 10 days. So as soon as they meet in March, we'll be
Right. You'll be on
scheduling
the
meetings
agenda.
with the respective boards.
And
The board's been very accommodating.
is there
Who's writing up the easement?
I know Jerry Leary has been coordinating the
Attorney
legal
Leary,
aspect of
okay.
things for Stonebridge. They may ask, if there's any legal costs, they may ask the school
We
to.
would assume the cost
Right.
to write the easement. If they want Mr. Leary to do it, that's fine. If not, I'm sure Steve could.
Okay.
We'll have our attorney look at it regardless.
Right.
Okay.
Sure.
Looking over. Okay, that's good. So that's moving along.
Yes, it is. It's back at DEM now.
And the only additional cost, Bill, if you can show them again, is the additional pipe.
Right.
Roughly where it would have been. where it
The
was.
location where it was previously proposed was down here, just south of other land that was owned by Stonebridge. So we have to, some additional piping from that point to the new location. As many boulders as we found here, there were none up here. So I think the excavation is going to be simpler, and that hopefully will result in cost savings
And
to
it's
the.
important to note that the treatment facility itself isn't going to have any changes in the plan as currently configured. It's just the additional piping for the sand.
That's correct. The balance of the project would remain the same. Just from the existing treatment plant is where we'll have our pre-treatment system and our pumps that will pump up to
And we're going
this.
to run the pipes on the eastern side of the football field, which is towards the visitor side. And I think we'll have a map showing
So
that.
in back of
So it's going to be in back of the field.
the,
This is the football field, and then the piping route would be to the east of it, around the field, so that we avoid any conflict.
So we
with-
don't have to go near the walkway or anything like
that's-
that.
so it's not on the stand side, it's on the
No,
other
it's on
side.
the other
Far
side,
side.
the
It's
visitor
actually less
side.
disruptive.
So you won't have to.
I'm sorry, the home side.
Which is
Bobby-
home side in
Bobby
Tiverton.
uses the home side, I'm sorry.
Right.
It
Yeah.
would be the home
That's why I
side.
was confused, yeah.
So you won't have to tear all that. And
That's
even
correct.
better. I
Right.
like, that's nice. That's good. And you think the cost will be good, Mr. Fiore?
We're working on, I don't think the additional cost for the piping, and have you had a chance to look at any?
I'm still waiting for a couple of quotes to come back from the equipment provider, and I should have that this week, so I can give you a tighter number.
Since the concept didn't change, it's just the additional labor involved in laying the additional pipes.
Right, and I think that certainly is going to be offset by not having to deal with the large amount of stones in the other
And
location,
the trees as well.
and trees as well. There is some clearing that would be
Right.
required up above, but not nearly as much.
Great, thank you. Any other questions from anybody? Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation, because the community wants to keep up on that. Thank you. Okay, now we have the school policy, Mr. Everett.
Yes, there's 3 policies that the subcommittee has worked on, and we've already posted these 3. One is policy 690 regarding substitute employees. The second is policy number 330, which is revision to our budget schedule, and number 710, advertising of meetings.
I did catch a typo. You know, no matter how many times you look at these. Revised policy number 330,
Okay?
Section D. The board directs the superintendent to submit on behalf of the board the proposed budget and related information required by law. We're just missing the D.
We will make that, because I'll have to format it without the changes, so
Right.
it's not a problem.
I'll make a motion to approve the policies as amended.
Second.
Do I have any questions? No, nobody? Okay, all those in favor? Good job from the policy committee again. Spirit 2000.
Yes, our budget, I don't know if that's on. Our budget hasn't really changed that much since mid-January, when we made some revisions to it. Subsequently, since then, one of the reasons why we haven't made many changes was we were waiting really on the town side of the budget as to how the school resource officer
Excuse me, I have to recuse myself.
would be paid for in next year's budget. We, again, had said publicly at numerous meetings that we would be willing to pay a percentage of that amount based on the number of days that the officer would work, which would be the 180, but we were never given a dollar amount so that we could work off of. I believe at Saturday's budget meeting at the with the town council, they put a dollar amount in. Doug, and that was what, 70,000?
Yes, that's correct.
$70,000, and the discussion was there. We weren't there. We weren't present. With that, the school department would pick up 75% of that because that's roughly about 180 days out of the 240 that the police officer would work. That comes to, and you have a worksheet that Doug just handed you. It's in the box. That cost, if we built into the budget, would be $50,400. Now, ahead of that, and I'll call your attention back to keep your eyes on the chart, we were able to achieve additional health care savings through the trust, which saved us
Wow.
$179,020. You back that off of where we were at $28,847,441, and then build in the $50,400. And our best data from RIDE is that if the sequestration goes through, that we could suffer up to a 5% reduction in federal aid, which is $38,918. So that would bring our total number to $28,757,739. You can see the budget was at $27,917 for FY13. The reduction, and you can just see the math. What it does do is it brings our request down from 3.3 to 3%, and the impact on the tax rate is estimated at 2.1%.
So it'll be a 2.1% on local taxation?
Correct.
Yes, if the committee is willing to, if you want to go in that direction.
Yeah, just to give a little background, as you can see on the top line, on the 15th of February, the trust distributed the rates for the new year for our health insurance, and we were very pleased. Both us and the town actually went down from the current year because of our positive experience with the run rates for the current fiscal year. So I think that happened once in the past decade other than this time, so it's not a frequent occurrence. So we were more than pleased to put in the new rates, and when I ran them through the model, you see the savings that we're estimating of $179,020, and that more than offset the additional potential expenses we would have if we were to include the school resource officer and our estimation of our sequestration cuts if those do happen. And I called RIDE today just to try to get the latest information regarding the cuts, and they've been using a 5% estimate across the board. Some of our grants could be more than that, some could be less, but they said that's probably their best estimate.
So those federal grants are those things that...
And you have those in front of you.
That's the other handout. We were going to get to
We
that.
gave you two handouts. The second handout that you have is a breakdown of the various federal grants, the Title I, Title II, IDA Part B, and the dollar amounts with a brief program description for each, per your request.
Right.
Thank you, this is very helpful.
Yes, so those are things, just for people who are watching, like Title I, IDEA, which is preschool, things like that, that we get federal money for. That's not, we don't need to ask the town for it. It's
correct.
federal aid that we get. The reason that the sequestration comes into play is because of sequestration, these amounts that normally are paid with federal monies are going to have to come back on, a percent of it on our books, because you can't just not have
That's correct.
IDA, EA services. We still have to have the service, we still have to have the support, we're mandated to. So it's not like because they're not giving us the money through sequestration that we can just cut the support, nor would we want to.
Right.
I mean, it's important support in the community, but that's why when there's a projected 5% cut on this, we have to then move it back into our
That's right.
town
Right.
operating
And that's
budget.
why we're recommending that we use $38,918 of our savings from the healthcare reduction
Right.
to offset
Just-
that, just in case.
I mean, part of the challenge is budgeting now for something that there's just uncertainty for, so I think
Yeah, we'll know in what, July,
Maybe.
August? Maybe.
Best case, May, that's probably.
Well, there's two types of
realistic.
cuts going on. There's cuts right now for our current fiscal year, and we've been told that it doesn't impact monies already expended up through, I believe, March 1st was when the sequestration took place, somewhere around March 1st. We have to worry about the rest of this year and next year. That 5% that Doug's talking about is if this had to go through all of next year into fiscal 13-14.
So does it include 12 months or 12 months plus the last 4 months of
Just
this
the
fiscal
fiscal
year?
fiscal
This was
year.
just 2014 in a vacuum, so it doesn't.
We would have to
include-
make up any reductions
for the
between
current
now
year.
and the end of the
Right,
year,
right.
somehow.
And that could be a separate discussion, but we wanted to focus on the 12 months of 2014 for this.
Plus, we also, I hate to say it, we don't know, and RIDE doesn't know. The White House, when you go to their website, they break it down by state. The data's, I think RIDE's using what they have because it's the same information. It says roughly 5%. And statewide, Rhode Island's scheduled to lose approximately 30 teaching positions, and I think they do that with a formula of total dollars cut, and they say every 50,000 or whatever's a teacher. They calculate it that way.
But our challenge is we need to lock in now.
Mrs. Black?
Yes.
Would you please vote on the school resource officer so I can come back to the whole?
Certainly. Yes. So the question before us then is whether we want to include in the budget we submit to the Budget Committee the $50,400 for next year's school resource officer, or our share, which would be 75%.
And, I certainly, I would say absolutely. I mean, it's a position we need. I think it's great that they're going to share in the funding for the days that we're not using them. I mean, it's something that we need. It's something that was asked for. So I will make a motion that we include the $50,400 for a school resource officer.
Is there a second?
Sure.
Any more
Jan said-
discussion?
Jan or Jerry. Excuse me.
Any more discussion?
I just have actually one quick question. So the 50,400 is the percentage of the 70,000, and that's the cost.
That will be our share.
With benefits, and that will actually appear on the municipal side budget.
When we go to the Budget Committee tonight, my understanding is they will show how they're going to account, how the breakdown will account when voters look at the document.
My guess is they're going to show 70,000 in the police budget and then a net of
A credit from
50,000.
us.
Right, and then a credit for
A
us.
credit from us.
Yeah, we've had some preliminary
You said
discussions.
that there was, initially the number was 180,000, is that right?
No, the
180 days.
180 days.
That's the school year.
That's our
over the-
school year.
So the
I thought-
police
You
department
take a percentage.
I got it.
Right.
Got it. Okay.
could use the balance of the year.
No,
for-
not 100, I want to be clear, it wasn't 180,000 for the police officers.
We're
only
basically
70,000.
paying for 180 days that schools
Yeah,
are
yeah,
session.
Yes.
And do we have any information that grant money or federal money might be available at some point?
The chief and I, Chief Blakey and I, the chief wrote a letter, I wrote a letter. They went out yesterday to all the federal elected officials requesting that if money becomes available, we are interested, and the chief wrote a letter explaining what it would be used for. So we
Good.
put everyone on notice and
Good.
said we're interested if the federal money does come available. Please consider us.
So we have a motion,
Any-
seconded.
Yep. No, if there's no more discussion, all in favor?
Mrs. Black, you
It's
can come
4 in
back.
favor and 1 recusal.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Rivera, could you please describe again for the public the budget process? You made a beautiful presentation of how it comes from the
Yeah,
principals and
the budget,
everybody.
just very quickly, the budget, we started in November. I asked the principals to put together what their needs are, in addition to what they normally would request. This past year, the requests came in for a guidance counselor, an additional guidance counselor at the middle school, a middle school nurse, both of which we felt, while the need was there, it was something that if we could afford it, I'd put it in the budget, but it would have put us right at 3.9%. So
And it was also a request for a full-time library aide at the
Yes, I'm
elementary
sorry,
schools,
thank you.
which is also
I knew I was missing one
very
thing.
much needed.
Yes, and a full-time librarian aide that the, library aide, excuse me, that the elementary principals requested. I cut those out of the budget prior to the original submission. And what you were looking at is the culmination of us meeting internally and then presenting it to the committee. There is one other item, and I don't have the PowerPoint in front of me, but you do have the budget, since we're talking about the budget. The union, I met with the union leadership last week, and I just want to make sure I get the right amount. They had an issue with the adding of the stipends for the middle school band and for jazz band at the high school, because I guess there are other positions within music, such as all-state chorus and a couple of, there was another one I can't remember off the top of my head, that would not, strings at the elementary level, still don't get stipends. So their position was that if we can't put them all in, then
What would be the cost for the other two?
I didn't even bother to research it, because I figured we'd either go with this or we would just remove it for right now.
So how many positions have we left out?
At least two.
Well, there's a strings at the elementary school, and that's not stipend?
No, teacher does it on her time.
And then I'm
And gets
guessing
release time in the afternoon.
the new select chorus?
The select chorus is, I called it all state, but select.
So teacher gets a release time for that?
Because she comes in very early before the start of school, so the parents can drop their children off for the strings lessons.
What happens is she works in middle school setting. So she'll start middle school setting, she ends in middle school setting.
Which is 8 instead of whatever,
So
8:40?
What is the schedule for example,
Middle school starts
band
at-
director?
Well, the high school starts at 7:40.
What about the night practices and
Well, he gets
weekends and evenings?
stipends for certain things. He gets a stipend for the band, he gets a stipend for the marching band.
Okay.
But not jazz or?
Not jazz are the ones there. So again, just trying to be more equitable, and I guess it's an omission on mine. I mean, I just didn't even think of it, and they met, and I said, well,
Well,
So is this, so their position is don't give stipends to any of these programs? Or
if it needs to be equitable.
Right.
In other words, everybody who does similar work should be
Right.
getting, not necessarily the same amount, but a stipend.
But I have a question with the elementary strings.
Mm-hmm.
Is that outside of the normal workday, or is she
Yes.
just working a different shift on that day?
On the days that she works in the morning, she works at middle school setting.
So that's not a longer day for her, in other words?
It's just a change. But
So-
she's still
Change the
volunteer,
start time and change.
but she doesn't have to do that.
Okay.
Is
In
this
other
a-
words, we have the program because we were able to schedule it that way. The teacher was willing to do it. But if we didn't, then the teacher would just follow 5 days a week, a regular elementary schedule.
And are these, is the equity of the stipends in any way contractual or governed by the contract?
No, they're not in the contract,
So,
so we were
yeah,
trying
I
to...
guess I'd say, my, I don't know what the rest of the, committee thinks, but let's leave them
It
in,
w-
and if there's other ones we need to address next year,
I
we'll
just would
address
say
them.
it's not that much, I'm sorry, it isn't, someone asked, what's the differential? It wouldn't be much more than what you're looking at there.
No.
I mean, I don't know off the top of my head, I'd have to go and do the...
Can we
There's-
because I think, what's, $1,000?
Yeah, I have no problem just moving ahead with this, that's why I didn't take it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just say, we'll deal with it.
We'll deal with
Yeah.
them.
Let
We'll
them bring it
include
to
them.
our attention, we just address it
We'll
later.
just include it. I mean,
I didn't want it to gum up the whole,
It's not gonna
but
be
I just wanted to
budget.
bring it
Right,
to
I-
set
yeah,
up.
I don't
I
want to
see.
see them come out. I think we
Right,
can
right.
talk about the other two.
Right,
but
and
if
I
we-
just brought it to your attention because I
We have the flexibility
didn't
to
want-
put them
I said
in
I
if we
would.
want.
Right.
Yeah, that's how I view it.
All right.
right?
Alternatively, you can say, I mean, there's one pot of money, and divide it among whoever we think is.
We can do
Right.
that
Oh,
too.
the same dollars we have in the
We
budget.
could do that, we could do
yeah.
that too when the time
As a
comes.
transition year.
We can just say,
Right.
as a transition, we've got
Right,
$3,400
make it.
Yep.
in stipends.
And divide it
And
differently.
divide it. That's
That's
probably
true.
the easiest way, but
Yeah.
I just wanted to
Okay.
bring that to your attention.
But yeah, I think as, Jerry said, those aren't per contract, so that's really, I think we need to understand why is there a feeling that those need to have stipends? And,
But
like, for instance, my understanding was Select Chorus was just added because there were children who weren't taking the high school chorus, so she took it upon herself to, it's almost like you started a sport on a volunteer basis. So
Oh, absolutely.
I
That's why-
just want to understand,
We can-
you
Well,
know.
they would,
Yeah.
if we got to that point, then we would have to have those discussions.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
But I think we should leave them in.
I do
the
too.
ones that are
I'd like
here.
to see them left in.
Okay, thank you.
And we
So-
can decide later whether we add and split, or we add, or, yes?
If there's no other questions.
All right.
I can request-
We're going to need the committee, because we have the, for those folks at home watching, we go from this meeting to the Budget Committee
Yes.
meeting, and we are on the clock for submitting our final budget to them. I think it's March 16th.
Okay.
Is our
Before we move on, though,
deadline.
because we don't spend a lot of time on it, and I know there's been a lot of discussion, I just want to really quickly go over some of the amounts that we get
Sure.
from the federal. We get Title I money, which is to improve the academic achievement of disadvantaged youth, at about 184,000. We get Title II, which is to increase academic achievement by improving teacher and principal quality, which is about 90,000. IDEA, which is to ensure children receiving special education services are provided a free and appropriate education. And we also have IDEA preschool, that's about 500,000. So all in all, it's roughly, it's a little over $750,000. But I just want people to understand, we do get that money. It comes from the federal government. It is there to cover mandates. Anyone, we have this, if anyone's interested in seeing it. It's also audited every year by our auditors, and it is in the back of the audit.
It's not.
And you can see, and again, we don't have it for folks at home, but you can see on the second sheet, we break it down. You can see the positions where the monies pay, what they pay.
Salaries and benefits,
Right, and
purchase services,
again,
supplies.
as Deb mentioned, if we didn't have those federal dollars, we would have to make up the difference, so.
Right.
Because we wouldn't be hitting BEP. on
Right, we
some
wouldn't be
of these
meeting
categories.
we wouldn't be meeting the BEP, and meeting a lot of the children's special
Well, and they're
education
they're
needs.
federal mandates. I mean,
Right.
but, there has certainly been a suggestion in the past that we're hiding the money, and I don't want there to be any suggestion that we are, because we do know that it's there, we do discuss it, we do look at it, the auditors do audit it, and we do understand the impact of it if it goes away.
No, it's part of our budget process every year.
Yep.
As you said, subject to the audit that we go through annually. So,
And the other thing we have to point out is when they passed that IDEA in the 70s, they were supposed to give us 40%, and they give us in the teens. Keeps going down every year, so we still have the mandates, but they don't give us the money. And so that's important to realize, just like the state with the 60/40 and everything. So we keep getting cut, but we keep providing the services.
Here's-
So you needed what?
Well, what I would like is the committee right now, because when we go to the Budget Committee, we're going to have to send them supplemental data. But we want to be able to say the committee voted tonight on a
Potentially a new
number.
number.
A new number of 27,917.
if the committee's in agreement on the
397.
three adjustments that have been proposed.
Did I read that right?
So just to recap, our original budget was 28,847,441. The three changes that we're proposing tonight is, one is our reduction in health care, the second is the addition of the school resource officer, and the third addition is to cover sequestration cuts of 5% estimated on our federal grants, would leave us a revised proposed budget for 2014 of $28,757,739. That amount is $89,702 less than our original proposal from January 22nd. That number also represents a 3% increase from the current year's budget, but a 2.1% increase on the tax rate, which is a result of additional state aid. that
Yeah, I
we
was going to
received.
say, the reason that's 2.1 instead of the 3 is because we're getting more state aid.
Correct. So if the committee is in agreement with the proposed changes, I would request that they vote the $28,757,739, and we could present that number to the Budget Committee in a few hours.
I'll make the motion that we submit a budget request of $28,757,739 to the Budget Committee later this evening.
And I'll second that motion, and I'll say again, the reason we were waiting for this, as Mr. Fiore points out, the health care, we're still waiting for retirements, right? We don't know yet.
Retirements, we have none built in because we don't,
So those are the
Have
things
official word yet.
we don't know yet. We would know later on, but we have to get this put in already.
correct.
So it's a rush to put in for the Budget Committee, and so I second that. So anybody else have any questions, comments? No? Okay, all those in favor? Thank you, good job, Mr. Fiore, Mr. Rarick, with that.
The other thing regarding the budget, when we go tonight before the Budget Committee, we'll be talking about the SRO, but also the facilities study as to what their position is. They really were non-committal at our last meeting back in January when we met with the Budget Committee. I don't know, I mean, I'm hoping that they will agree. Again, it's not
But that's
impacting our
outside,
budget,
right?
right, but
Yeah, it's outside the
It's
budget.
outside this,
Because we're
but
going
we'll
to
be-
take that from our reserves.
right, but we'll still be talking about it later
Right.
tonight.
Okay.
So try to get some direction on that, but it doesn't come out of next year's budget.
Okay? That's good. I didn't bring all my charts, Mr. Gundy, because it was raining out. But the charts and the bear will be here
Thank
soon.
God for the rain.
Thank God for the rain, he says. I couldn't get through the parking lot. But I'll have some new ones, Mr. Fiore, I see, with some new information here. It's very exciting.
We had the additional chart as well, which is the 10-year average.
Yes, we have the 10-year average chart.
Oh, I love that, thank you. Very nice. I'll have to save up. Okay, health and wellness. Miss Santa, Diane, would you like to speak to what we've been doing?
Sure. Mrs. Black and I have been working on an update to our health and wellness policy. This is in conjunction with the cohort groups that we're part of through the Rhode Island Department of Education. We're receiving some technical assistance related to changes that are needed due to state and federal regulations. So it's a good opportunity to sit down and review what we have in place. We had to complete a survey online, which was actually more like a report card, and it scored how well our current policy was in relationship to these new requirements. So based on that and our model policy that we've been given, we're making some updates, and then we'll be sharing that with different stakeholder groups to get their input as well.
We're going to share it with the principals, and then with our subcommittee, then we'll bring it to your policy committee. And then we have to have it done by June. It's due in June per order of the state, so we'll have it done by then. So that was good. Okay, we did the wastewater treatment, now we have the kneecap, Mr. Rarick.
Yes, last month, the kneecap assessments that our students took last fall had come in. My administrators and I have met on a couple of occasions, and they've been meeting with their staffs also during this time period to analyze our results, and I'm just going to go through them with you by grade level, and then give you a summary, and then the principals, if they want to add anything, they will do so at that time. Third grade reading, again, Tiverton is in the bright yellow. For those of you at home, it might be the lighter color, depending on how good the resolution is. And again, we go, when we do the elementaries, we do all the schools put together. So these schools reflect, these scores reflect that. And when we see, like, for example, 84%, that's 84% of the students who took the reading assessment in Tiverton were proficient or proficient with distinction. State average was 70%. It was somewhat of a dip from last year, but still, overall, the third graders have done very well over the last 4 years. Now, I use 4 years because that's what RIDE looks at when they, when you look at all their studies. They use a 4-year window, so I do the same so you can just see for yourselves. Third grade math, Again, students did very well, 83%, versus this average, state average of 60. And again, you can see the state pretty much has remained the same over the last 4 years, where we've kind of dipsy-doodled there. We spiked in 10, and we've plateaued over the last couple of years on or about 83%. Fourth grade reading, our students did very well. 90% of them were proficient or proficient with distinction. State average was 69%. And again, this is like the ideal trend that you want to see, that slope upwards over the last 4 years. Same in math. Actually, we had a pretty good spike this year in our fourth grade math scores, with 86% of the students being proficient or better. Very briefly, our students in the third grade have scored above the state average, and they've increased by 6% over the last 4 years. Grade 3 reading was 14% higher than the state average, and we were 23% higher in math.
And they went up from third grade to fourth grade in both instances. Went from 84 to 90 in reading, and then 83 to 86 in math. So the
Yes.
proficiency went up as they progressed through elementary school.
In grade 4, students scored above the state average. Student performance in reading has improved by 15% over the past 4 years. That's a significant improvement in students that, again, they're different groups of students, but that fourth grade, students in fourth grade improved significantly in reading. Same in grade 3 reading.
I think that's supposed to be grade 4.
I apologize, you're right. I should send these to you, Carol, just to make sure. I'll have to complain you're out of a job. Fourth grade students scored 21%.
Right, the fourth grade was 90%.
Right, yeah,
That was
so-
very high.
I don't know, Elaine, how'd that get by you? Over the 4-year window, fourth grade students improved by 8%. Fifth grade reading, our students were at 80%, again, 8% above the state average. Slight dip from the previous year, but again, the numbers have been pretty consistent since '09 over the last 4 years in reading. In math, again, the same, plateaued around 80% over the last 4 years, which are very good scores, especially when you compare them to our state average. Oops. Again, these are just brief summaries for those who might not be visual, and now we have a system shutdown. That's not part of the presentation. Al?
Your time to shine.
Time for our tech coordinator
Low
to...
battery.
That's why we need Mrs. Black's charts, because they
That's
get
right.
good power.
They would be surviving no matter what. I'll bring it like-
What's going on? Oh, okay. I'll plow through. Huh?
This is the electricity savings system.
Demonstration of savings.
Oh,
There we
saving
go.
money, there we
There you
go.
go, saving electricity. That's wonderful.
It automatically shuts down at 6.
All the computers, there's exceptions in the buildings, but all of them is flat shut off, so we don't waste electricity.
What could I
And
say?
regarding-
Fortunately, that's not what I wanted to have happen tonight.
That's a good...
Well, you just wanted to show it.
Yeah, you got to see it.
All
It
right.
is a cost savings.
Al?
It's going to shut down. There's no manual override here.
Well, I'll wing it through our hard copies the old-fashioned way.
Are the lights going to go off too?
Don't laugh.
Flashlights, everyone.
See? You can't beat that. Good job, though. That will be in the evaluation form. Okay, what I was about to say was student achievement in writing was 10% above the state average, and that writing, fifth grade, since '09, improved by 4%.
Where are we?
It's the fifth grade
Grade
summary,
writing.
grade 5 summary.
Okay.
Now I'm going to grade 6.
Yep.
Our students scored 87% proficient or higher, or with distinction. And again, that's a very positive trend. I wish we had it up there for everyone to see, but you can see we grew significantly since '09. And in math, our students did very well, with 79% versus 62% for the state average. Of the summary, our student scores on both the reading and math were above the state average. Readings improved by 9% over the past 4 years, while math performance improved by 2 over the same time period. 7th grade reading, again, 11% above the state average, with 81% of our students being proficient or proficient with distinction. Math, it was 68% versus 59% for the state. Since '09, in grade 7, our students in reading improved by 12%, and math scores improved by 9%. Reading 11%, math 9% were both above the state average. So again, students were doing very well, not only last year, but also over the last 4 years. We're seeing growth at all these grade levels. 8th grade reading, 85% of our students were proficient or proficient with distinction versus 77% for the state. In math, our students were 63% proficient with distinction, which was 5% above the state average. Our 8th grade writing was a point lower than the state average at 1%, but as you'll see, was significantly better, has grown significantly over the last 4 years in writing. Our reading in 8th grade improved by 9% over the last 4 years. They were 5% above the state average. Student writing results improved by 24% over the past 4 years. So even though this past year we were below the state average, they grew significantly since 2009. And our math scores did decrease by 4% over the 4 years. This is our first decline out of all our grade levels, where we saw over that 4-year window our scores dipped a little. 11th grade reading, high school students scored 84% proficient or proficient with distinction, which was 8% higher than the state average. Math, 37%, which was 4% higher than the state average. And in writing, we really took a drop there this past year. We only had 47% of our students with distinction or proficient, which was 13% below the state average. And again, if you look historically, we've always done relatively well to the rest of the state regarding writing, excuse me. Let's see, I just summarized all that for you. What we're going to be doing next. Every student in grades 3 through 8 who received a 1 or a 2 in either ELA or math will continue to receive remedial support. We started this intervention program last year, and we're now going to expand it to the middle school in the area of math. Last year, if you recall, we started the program with those students with 1s. We're going to be expanding that. Mrs. Dias-Mitchell's been working on her schedule with our current staffing, and we're going to be able to, regardless of what the schedule may look like, we will be providing additional support for those students who received a 1 on the math or the ELA. Writing rubrics have been reviewed at all the grade levels, especially at the high school, and we're going to focus primarily on responding to reading text, because that's the type of writing response that our students had to do.
That's what I was going to ask. Was that the big problem this year?
It was this year, because it was something that we didn't focus on as far as a way to write.
Was it a new prompt, or was it something they had?
This prompt, I don't know if it was new, but the prompt itself, they scored on a score of 1 to 12. There were no 11 or 12s at the high school level in the state.
In the entire state?
That's correct.
So there's something there.
So you didn't have a full spectrum,
Oh,
so
I
you're
mean,
really
I can
starting-
only speak to my own child. Thought this was who normally is, way up there on the writing, just said it was
But
a
this-
very unusual
But this
prompt.
response to text is something that our students are going to see more of on the park assessments.
Okay.
So they started asking similar type questions now on ECAP. So our ELA teachers are now going to be adjusting, so the students will have these types of prompts to practice with,
And it's primarily at the high school that we were seeing
more at
that.
the high school than the other two
So
levels.
is this then a change from the writing exam in prior years, that now they're looking for more evidence from the text when you answer a
Yes.
question about a literary passage?
Correct. So they're still using the same rubric and similar responses, similar prompts, but what they're doing is they're making the prompts more park-like to kind of transition us. So you're absolutely right. They're requiring students to cite evidence from the text as opposed to more the student's general thinking about the text or a more personal response to the text. They want it to be very textual-based.
So we'll be doing more of those types of writings with our students.
I mean, I think part of the issue with writing, which seems to be our weak point because we're at or below the state average on it, is that they only are tested in grades 5, 8, and 11. So is there less emphasis on it, on the writing than in the off years? Than say for math or ELA where it's every year, so
No,
you have to
writing's
focus every year.
emphasized. It's the type of writing that the students are being required to do. We're going to be requiring them to do more of this response to text type writing, as opposed to maybe writing persuasive essays, or, which I know they do a lot of. We're now going to have to change that to fit what's going to be required on the test. So that will be incorporated starting, well, actually now, but certainly by September in our 9th and 10th grade ELA classes at the high school. So that our kids will be, when they do their practice writing for ECAP, they'll have those types of prompts in front of them. So again, when I taught advanced placement history, one of the keys to having your students do well was make sure they studied, but also that they were familiar with the types of essay questions that they might see and how they're worded, so then they can respond to them accordingly. So this is no different. You just have to take that type of prompt and tailor it to what we're actually teaching in the classrooms.
Now, we have extra support for students who scored 1 or 2 in reading or math. Will we offer extra support for students who scored 1 or 2 on writing?
Right.
The principals have identified, I know I was speaking with Mrs. Mitchell, and they are also looking at students who received 1s in writing. And many times there's a correlation. Students who receive 1 in writing are also 1s in reading. And I know that our reading specialists who work with students, that they're always incorporating writing in a response to literature, especially now moving more towards PARC. In the new PARC assessment, writing will be assessed every year, so that will be a good thing where we have more data to inform our instruction. And again, the type of writing will be citing text. In the PARC reading assessment that we're going to take, the writing component also impacts their reading score. So right now within ECAP, the reading assessment, they're just looking at your reading comprehension. How well you write really isn't a factor unless it's a barrier to them understanding what you've written down. But that will be different in PARC, so there will be a deduction in the student's reading score if their writing is not up to par. So we really have a lot of work to do. Next year we'll be looking at, actually we're going to start in the spring, looking at some statewide curricula that's been developed for alignment to Common Core for reading and writing. So we've got a lot of transition.
So in the writing, they want them just to be able to quote details from the text versus talk about how the story made them
Yes,
feel?
you have to defend your response by using data that you read from the
Yeah, you have to
text.
glean out the,
So,
As opposed to, I
phrase
believe,
or-
you know, World War II was caused by X.
so if
gotta
you
prove it.
say that a character was affected by a certain
You gotta-
event,
To go back
you
and-
have to quote a line or a
And it's
phrase
more
or a
style,
sentence to
and that's
and
just
be
really
specific.
getting our kids to really just think a little, just to look at it a little differently than how they do it. I don't see that part being all that difficult for our, especially at the high school, because we have outstanding ELA teachers, to incorporate those types of prompts into what they do.
And their reading scores are good. That's what, that doesn't fit, that reading, because reading and writing go hand in hand.
I think the biggest thing was the prompt itself, that there were no 11s or 12s. So that means you weren't starting really with an A, you were starting with a scaled score of a B+.
Right.
But we're still below the state average
Well,
at the
no,
high school, so
it-
it's not just the test.
No, but, no, in writing though.
In writing, right,
statewide,
in
though,
writing.
You saw a dip with a lot of high schools took a dip. We took a bigger dip probably than most.
So when is the kneecap going away for what? Next year, we won't be taking it
No,
for?
Next year, they'll be taking kneecap, and they'll be taking kneecap the following year and the park,
Only one grade level.
grade 11. My daughter's grade, that's how I can remember it so well.
Our ninth graders will be taking
They'll be taking 2 tests.
kneecap and park as 11th graders?
Yes.
So, it's not enough.
Now, eventually, Park will incorporate grades 9 and 10. So we'll have more data to look at, not just for writing, but in math. Because, again, the math scores statewide, they're similar, ours would mirror. Middle school, they're here, and then they slope
Oh, yeah.
in every district
To
down.
11th, yeah, in high school.
Now, everybody can't, in my opinion, can't be getting it wrong as far as what we're teaching in math. And we talk about this all the time. We made curriculum course alignments so that students are now getting geometry in 10th grade as opposed to when they used to get it in their junior year. We've done a lot of those changes, and we're going to be making more changes as the park curriculum comes online in September. But we need data. There's something, whether high schools are de-emphasizing certain parts that kneecap and park are going to view as important, I think is what's happening. In other words, unless you're very gifted in math, or I don't want to use gifted, but good at math, you may not remember everything you learned in the 9th grade. And some of the things that our kids are being asked on this test require them to be able to recall information that they've used, a year or two before. So hopefully with having those assessments in 9 and 10, we'll be able to target sooner and more quickly where we need to prop some kids up as far as what skill sets they need.
Well, to me, the most depressing diagram is 11th grade cohort diagram, which we
Yeah.
can go over this. Because this basically indicates how someone's proficiency progresses through the education, 5th, 8th, 11th grade. So when we look at ELA, students 60, 70, 80, whatever it is.
Right.
Now, if we look at writing, it's pretty much flat at 40 to 50, then 45. Look at math. After middle school, going to high school, it goes from 70 to 35. Well, no wonder the U.S. government is going to give visas to everyone with master's degree in technology and technical fields, because we cannot produce people who can be good in math and science, because it's not that we don't have a progress. We have a drop by 100%, basically, in terms of the math proficiency between 8th grade and 11th grade.
Well, I don't,
Well, again, as I pointed
We are
out,
still 1% above state average, but
No,
it's
but-
still not.
but I think what that chart, and I wish we had it up there, so, and this will be online for everybody to view, that slope that I'm talking about, that Mr. Burgundy just talked about, you can look at every high school in Rhode Island and you see that drop off. It's a precipitous drop from 8th grade to 11th grade. In some cases, it's worse. Yeah. You
Yeah,
have
the whole-
that.
the whole state
The point is, you shouldn't.
hits
the whole-
11th grade
As
in
a
math.
state, in my opinion, if we were an outlier and we were the only ones that had that precipitous drop, I'd say it's something we're doing. I can't say that because every school district in Rhode Island sees that drop from 8th to 11th. And it's a significant drop, whether it's 50%, 20%, whatever. You shouldn't see that much of a variation.
Well, I would like to see
in
this
testing.
against some other schools of.
Well, I have that,
Our
and I will have it
cohorts.
at our next meeting.
Good,
The
good.
similar districts, I
Yeah.
have that, and you'll see, it pans itself out. You'll see that. And this is part of the crux of the problem with math, is what, we all can't be getting it wrong. As district, it's just impossible that everybody is having, there's something there that, why is this problem existing? We're doing all the things RIDE tells us to do.
Yeah, I'm not saying that we are doing
No, I'm just
something
not
wrong.
saying us, I'm just
It's
saying,
just very
there's
tragic.
something there that's,
Data here, which we see, and
Well, it
some
really-
of these maybe we don't.
It really
have.
does come down, it's a very bimodal question. The educational infrastructure is not teaching the students to take the test, or the test isn't valid. You can take your pick which one it is, but that's really what it does come down to.
There's nothing to do
What-
with, yeah.
What are the results of Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Connecticut? Are they having similar?
I can
Math
produce that
issues.
for you, but yes, math at the high school level in those states, overall, you have the same issue. Students do very well in the elementary, middle school math. High school math is a struggle for them. I don't know, I didn't focus on what they do in the other
Right.
states, but I can,
We could check
I mean, there'd just be more
right, it's just more data.
data that
to
would
show.
tell you that the problem is more widespread, and maybe it is in fact the educational infrastructure.
Yeah.
In which case, we should say, why are we using this test until we have an infrastructure that will actually give you the, support the students to achieve the standard that your test is measuring, or really there's something wrong with the test and the
I'm
way
not
it's
singling
written.
out Tiverton here, but the problem is not in testing, because you can see at college level how many students drop out of science and engineering programs, so they are not well prepared for in that particular area, and potentially we can do nothing about it, and that's okay, but it's still worth mentioning that.
Right, that's
We have
exactly what I'm
this
saying.
situation.
That's sort of, it's the infrastructure issue as
Right.
opposed to the
Yeah,
Test.
but
issue.
not testing necessarily.
No, it's
No,
not testing
but there's
per
no,
se.
there really isn't any evidence that tells us that the test is right either, though.
Well, the same thing applies to ELA and writing, because potentially these high scores are not valid because we don't test the right things.
I agree.
Absolutely.
No
And-
argument
and
there.
In 2 years it goes away, but yet we're left still with this, whatever the percentages of our 11th graders who are at risk of not.
Now, again, they've
Hang
gone
on.
up over the last 4 years. The number is still too low, which, we've talked about, in the past. The problem, and it's kind of getting people prepared for the park. The park is taking everything that our kids currently do and pushing it down a year. So we're going to be requiring students to be able to do even more complex math computations at a lower level. So it's very possible scores that districts have now will be lower, depending on how they norm them, than what they are now. Because if you're asking more of students, it's going to be more difficult at a younger, earlier on, than if you're struggling now and you're pushing it down even further. I mean, hopefully that doesn't happen, but I mean, it very well could, especially in math, where math is, a very challenging area, but
Well, whenever you change the assessment, the first year or two, you're going to see a drop
Oh, you're
because
gonna-
nobody really knows what the test is going to be like till we put it in front of every
unfortunately, you'll see
student in
a
our
drop.
schools.
You'll see a drop, because we did the first round of interim assessments, and the data is showing that we probably will drop.
And these assessments are supposed to be park-like.
Yes.
But since Park hasn't had an official test yet, even there, we can't be sure that these
True.
park-like tests are going to be that similar to the real park when it's
I
unrolled,
hope I'm being a nabob of negativism, as Spiro Agnew once said. I'm just saying that districts need to be prepared that when we go to kneecap,
Yeah.
as much prep as we're going to do,
The park,
it's going to
right.
be,
It's because it's a
the
change.
numbers are going to fluctuate.
Right.
And I'll leave it at that.
It's a change.
But in the middle of all this, Mr. Pizzette has been working so hard and his staff to get everybody the support they need.
And again, it also
Right.
doesn't, and the numbers that we've shown, even though there is that, and that's there every year, unfortunately, the math. And this year, the high school had the drop in the reading. But you overall look at our scores. We do very well, period. You're in the 80 percentile in most of the areas, especially in ELA and in math. So we are heading as a district, we are in the right direction. Our students are learning. In math, and this is all off-ride, during that 4-year window, ELA district-wide improved by 6%, and math improved by 2%. So, you can take data and basically, and Jan can attest to this, to say, a lot of things, but just look, I try to use the stuff that people can understand and can get their arms around, and that from a district standpoint, there's growth, except in that math, that slide from 8th to 11th grade. And if I had an answer to that, I probably wouldn't be here talking to you. I'd probably be in Washington, making a lot of money as a high-priced consultant, because that seems to be, an issue that we all struggle with. Do the principals have anything you guys want to add that I left out?
One thing I will, just briefly, but as we analyze that, when we're looking at the POC assessments, the interim assessments, students are spending more time on the interim assessments than they spend on the interim. It's all online. We've got some issues as far as technology with the amount of time, or the amount of students that can take the test on our laptops. The bandwidth is just not there to keep all 25 kids taking the test on laptops. We have to put some of them on hard drives. And a lot of it is getting the students to understand the keyboard, how to operate the computer.
That's what I was asking.
K through 4.
Onto the,
Right.
onto the test. So we've got a lot of discussion that has to happen as far as how we want to prepare our students just to take the test.
Right.
So your third grade?
Right. Once they know the answer, how do they actually mark the test? Yes. Yeah.
When they're talking about pencils and erasers, computer-wise. And a lot of kids, especially in the third grade, don't even know the keypad.
Right.
We haven't even introduced them.
That's what I've been asking. How are they even going to take it?
So a lot of that discussion is going to have to happen.
And do you find there's any difference for the students when they're reading off a computer screen, as opposed to, even an e-reader screen is easier than a fixed computer screen?
Right, so we're looking at these different options. A lot of times the kids are taking the questions out and getting the whole passage on the computer. So there's options there, but the kid has to know how to go back and forth through those options.
Right.
We're spending a lot of that.
How to move from screen to screen and go back, yeah.
Correct.
And we've just received data as far as how long the estimate's going to be. It's approximately 10 to 12 hours per assessment, per grade level. So ELA will be 12 hours, 10 to 12 hours. Math will be 10 to 12 hours.
You're not saying a single student will spend 12
Yes.
hours being tested in
Yes.
ELA in front of a computer?
Absolutely.
How many times a year?
In multiple sessions.
Yeah.
But it will be in the springtime, just like kneecap now, but more.
When we look at the interim assessments, a lot of the questions that the kids in 4th grade are working on are stuff that I used to see kids in 6th grade working on. So that it's at least 1 year pushed down. Sometimes it's a year and a half to 2 year pushed down.
So the 12 hours is in the spring.
When we go to park, the projected
Right.
time will be,
So that's
So
the
instead of
final
taking
part,
the
that's not the
kneecap,
interim
No, the
assessment.
interims.
So what
So
are the
they-
interim, and how long do they take?
The interims are taking about an hour to an hour and a half per session.
And how many
There's 3
times?
sessions of ELA and 2 sessions of math.
And how many times a year do we do that?
3.
So 3 times a year, several hours, and then
About
we
6
have
hours for the interim assessment.
6 hours, 3 times, and then we have the 10 to 12
Mm-hmm.
in the spring.
That's what we're looking at.
This is all computer, remember, this is all computer-based. We've had these discussions as far as how we're going to be able to get all the, especially if we have to take grade 4 or all grade 3 at one time. We don't really have the capacity to do that.
Ride's created a tool called the School Readiness Tool. We have to upload how many computers, how fast they are, and then they're giving us estimates as to how long. And I think, off the top of my head, I think we haven't shared yet, it just came out this week, but I think they're predicting possibly 25 days, depending upon what assessment and whatnot.
How long does it take you to get the interim assessments back so that it helps you?
Well, the turnaround for the first interim assessment was probably like 6 weeks.
About that.
Yeah, they just rolled them out this year, so the first return was very slow. We took them again in January, and we haven't gotten those back yet, and that's because for the first year, they're having them scored, the constructive response portions of it are being scored by measured progress, the vendor.
So give me the months we've taken them. We took them in
October.
October and
Took the
November.
kneecap in October, and November
And we
was-
got them back not in time for our next one, it sounds like, which was in January.
Results back in the second interim of stock.
Next year, we'll get them back. We won't get them back, they will be, so all of the multiple choice, because it's computer-based, will be scored automatically after the student takes it. And then there are some constructive response items that the teachers will score with a rubric and enter the score.
So October, November, January, when's the next one?
March, I believe.
March? And then we have one in what, May?
We have one in May science.
And do your,
Well, but
Do-
then Park will be similar.
Yes, Park, once we go to Park, there'll be no testing in October like there is now. There'll just be the assessment, the interim assessment. And then Park will be given, except for that junior class, the 2016 class, who will get kneecap in the fall and Park in the spring. Eventually,
But will we still be doing interims?
yes.
So,
right?
So my concern is if we're not getting them back quick enough to help, what's the point?
Next year you will, next year you'll.
Promise?
get interims back.
Are you promising?
No,
Because we hear this every
They're
year.
not going to ride, though. Next year, when the students take it online, because it's computer-based, the computer does the multiple choice and scores them, and then the teacher has to score the constructive response.
We hope to have them.
What time that's going to take?
So the teacher's going to have to do their own scoring of the interims.
Part of it.
3 times a year, so that the feedback can even be useful.
That's correct.
And do the younger students have the stamina to sit in front of a computer screen for an hour and a half being tested? An 8-year-old?
It's not an hour.
It's not one session. Most of the sessions we're using right now are 40-minute sessions.
Even 40 minutes?
40 minutes is a lot.
For an 8-year-old to sit still testing in front of a computer screen?
So it's taken us 2 scheduled periods to get one session.
Now, there is a silver lining here.
Where is it?
It's optional? Are you going to tell me it's
I
optional?
wish.
And we can decline?
Is that RIDE, again, the information fluctuates depending on the weather, I think. But as of right now, they're going to have multiple tests. So entire grades aren't going to have to come offline at once. Now, that's as of, this month. It could change, but if they stick with that will help us as far as administering the test. But you still have all these other inherent, it's going to take a couple of years at least to get a feel for what this is going to do for the teacher's day as far as implementing the data. My concern is teachers are going to get too much data. You're going to get data by paralysis, and what do you do? What we look at, going back to the kneecap scores, is we try to just take a few data points because there's tons of information. It's to tell us that a child is not meeting the standard. The question is, how do you remediate the child? And what supports do you put in place? That's where we're spending our time and our energies now. We have plenty of data. The interim assessments and the formative assessments, when they come along, is just more. So teachers in every district across Rhode Island are going to have to learn how to calibrate all this information to make it work for them, which in turn will make their instruction more effective for the kids that they have. So it's going to be a learning process, Deb. I hope we get it back. To answer your question, I hope we get it back in a faster turnaround time so it becomes effective. We can only hope that, RIDE will deliver on
And there'll be
that.
training for them to do their own.
Yes,
Scoring.
yes, we've already
Yes.
started.
If the students that the session may be too long, we are able to do all of the accommodations that we do for kneecap for students who are taking the interim assessments. So we do have it in place for all of our testing sessions, all of the accommodations we do for all of our students for kneecap. So we were able to break down students into smaller groups. We were able to do for students that do need breaks during testing sessions. We were able to do that and do the multiple breaks and break up different sessions. So we did really tailor the testing sessions for students that needed it. So
That's good.
we did whatever accommodations students needed in order to really give them the fair advantages to take the test.
Oh, good.
reality, what breaks down to some kids taking tests all day.
Yeah. well,
Right.
That's what
One
I'm,
silver lining at the middle school was the ELA teachers noted that all the kids, generally speaking, wrote more using a computer. It's not necessarily better. But more, the volume. was
Certainly
there.
more neatly.
The volume was there. And some children loved it. Some children were so motivated that they were able to use the computers.
I
have
could
to
see
say,
that, yeah.
Some kids, we were very surprised. Some kids that were not traditionally motivated to take the kneecap were excited to take the interim assessments because they were able to go onto the computers.
Yeah, this
So, I mean,
internet
you get both
generation,
sides of the
yeah.
coin. So,
But if the next step is cell phones and just thumbs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
everyone will be singing when taking tests.
Maybe that's what we need to implement.
It's going to happen.
All right, gang, we look at that at our next ad council
Okay,
meeting.
thanks.
Download a seesaw.
No.
so in the end,
So
Mr. all the
kneecap?
support is still there for the
Yeah, all the
students that need
support's
it.
still there, and
You
we're
know,
putting additional supports
that's the important
for the
thing.
students with the ones.
Yeah.
Our concern as a district, and we've had these conversations, is just not on the ones, but also students that are in that 2 range that weren't proficient. We want all our children to be proficient. What happens is because RIDE at the high school level has said, if you get a 2 or better or higher, you can graduate. So people tend to turn their mind away from those kids that are the 2s and just focus on the 1s. We're going to do
You
both.
want to do, yeah,
We're
right.
not going to just look at one, we're looking at both groups and trying to move them. Now, again, Steve has taken the appropriate steps for those students that did receive a 1. The letters have gone out. He's going to be meeting with the parents, I believe, starting later this month, for those students, those juniors who received a 1, and explaining to the parents what the options are, what they have to do for next year to get them to show growth so that
Because
they can
whether
graduate.
we like the test or not, it's our job to prepare the kids to
That's
pass
correct.
that so they can move forward.
What's the percentage of these
Yeah.
students?
It's like
We have
30%, 40%.
45 students out of 132 in math received a 1. We had 8 students receive a 1 in ELA.
But he said some were very close.
Some are very, very close to the
And there were
cut.
maybe, you know,
About half that number, as I said at our last meeting, and Jan, I don't know if you were present, is that there's going to be about half that number that we're really going to have to work with and provide a lot of support to try to get them to that growth number that RIDE has provided for them. Because every child has a growth number. Whatever their score is, RIDE has set a window where they have to grow by, a growth number. So, that's what we're shooting for. And we'll start that this springtime at the high school.
now what provisions have they made for the children of 3 to 21 age and special needs? They're going to go
Well,
across
students
the
with
stage, right?
students with special needs, there's about 2% of the population going to take the alternate assessment. That's different from what
But
the other kids.
they'll be able to graduate though, go across the stage?
Yeah, if they pass the alternate assessment, absolutely.
Well, you might make sure, let
We
me
had
know if they can,
100%,
'cause I'll be
we
there.
had 100% of our students pass the alternate
Yeah.
assessment last year.
Because they're going across the stage. If they're here from 3 to 21, they're getting something.
Our
Not
students
tapping
really,
out.
our students graduate at 18, and then they get 3 years of
I know, I'm just
support.
saying, make sure we take
No,
care
our
of
students graduate.
those children are graduating.
No, they do.
You let me know if they don't, because I'll be up at RIDE. Thank you very much.
I'll let you
Okay.
know.
Thank you. Calendar, school calendar?
Yes, I have the proposed 2013-14 calendar for your approval. In this calendar, and again, because we really got whacked with snow days, which will be taken up on the next item agenda, I'm recommending that we start the last week in August, but again, it's just a recommendation to the committee. If that calendar doesn't work for you, then I'll come back with a...
I much
Changes.
prefer starting late August. Students have more time to prepare for their October kneecaps, and if we have more hurricanes and blizzards, then we're not in school until the last week in June.
Right. Under the proposal, August 29th would be the first day of school for students. we would have teacher orientation on the 27th and our teacher PD day on the 28th of August. And barring any blizzards, hurricanes, or any other acts of God, we would get out on June 16th.
Okay, do I
I
have a
move to
motion for
approve.
that?
Second.
Any questions? No? All those in favor? Now the revised calendar.
Now, the
Mr.
revised calendar, because of Mother Nature, throwing us some curveballs, we need to amend the calendar. I'm recommending that we just add the 4 days on to the end of the calendar, which would take us through June 20th. I'm sorry, not June 20th, June 26th. Sorry. We end on the 20th. I'm adding the 4 days, so it would be the
So we'd end
26th.
on a Wednesday?
We'd end on a Wednesday.
There was some discussion, I heard, that if we missed school on a day that had been declared a state of emergency, that that day did not have to be made up. Is there any truth behind that rumor?
Bill, I wasn't the only one that heard
That rumor's been going around in
We have-
more than one
Did you
state.
start it?
In more
Our
than one state.
communications from RIDE
Did you start that?
is that
I did.
we have to make up the days, and we cannot use, we cannot add time at the end of the day,
Right.
and that there's no waivers.
So it doesn't matter if it was a state of emergency.
Our direction from RIDE is, as of
No.
right now, we have to make up the days.
And the possibility of making up one day on Good Friday, was there a reason that was ruled out?
It's a religious holiday, and I just didn't think to propose, I didn't think.
And the
that
union was
something-
okay with your solution?
The union, I met with the union per the contract, they were okay with
They
the
were okay?
the social, I didn't take either holiday.
Okay.
Good Friday because it's a religious holiday, and Memorial Day because it's Memorial Day. Up to the committee. I'm recommending that we just add the 4 days.
But just add at the end, it's clean and simple,
Yeah.
and otherwise it will be a discussion, I want this day, I want that day, and I just move that we approve what's proposed to add 4 days at the end of the calendar.
And high school graduation remains the same on the
Remains the same.
You're
14th?
okay, the
That doesn't
seniors are
change.
okay?
Well, my son will be greatly
He'll be great.
relieved.
He'll get to give his speech on the 14th.
That'll be very exciting. Okay. All those in favor?
Did you second it, Tom?
Yes.
The revised one?
I did now.
Okay. And now we have the proposed legislation. I gave you a copy of it, because I know that you like to have the wording before you vote. And that's on special education. That was
Do you want us to vote in favor, do you want
Mr. Canario.
a
was
vote of
that-
support for the,
Well, I just brought it to the committee so they
So
could
what this
look
one
at it.
basically says, it puts a cap on the,
That was the one we suggested.
Honestly, I
to-
haven't had a chance to read it.
You wanna wait? We can wait till next time.
I haven't had a chance to.
All right, I just gave it to you so you could look at it, and then we can vote on it next time.
The next agenda?
Yes. Okay. That was the one that we said, we asked them to do, remember, Mr. That?
and the other one is binding arbitration again.
We'll put that in.
we already took a position against it.
Yeah, but this is more the next one.
Is there a new bill?
We have to put that in the writing. the
Is there
bill.
a new bill?
For binding, no, not that I'm aware of.
We'll put it in, right, the one we have, finding out,
Finding out if
the wording of it exactly.
Okay.
Well, except
What?
that
Oh, yeah, this one was
the wording
February 7th.
relates to a specific
What are we
bill.
doing?
The bill that's up there.
There's a binding arbitration bill?
Yeah, the
Yes.
next one you have here.
Oh, okay.
It's
Oh, there's
in there,
two.
right.
Oh, okay. Only saw one.
But we can go over those and put them on next time.
Did we
So you
decide
have a chance to read
all
them.
of
No, we did the
Yes.
whereas,
Okay.
therefore, of which is,
We did?
So we'll put those
Oh,
on.
I
Oh, we
see.
did.
Yep.
Did we take a position against binding
Not yet,
arbitration
not
this
this year.
cycle?
we didn't?
No, not
No,
this
this
year
is
yet.
coming
Not this
I
every.
apologize, I thought we did it
This is for
already.
this year, again.
They just submitted the new
I know,
bill.
but we
Yeah,
took
so we'll look at that and put it on
Okay.
next time, okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm slipping.
We should just have one ready and just,
Reports and announcements, do we have any?
Mrs. Wardell,
Mrs. Wardell?
Mrs.
Mrs.
Wardell,
Wardell, do you have a report or
would
an
you care to tell
announcement?
who visited your school last week?
I know it wasn't the Easter Bunny.
Hey,
Visited March School on March 6th, and he visited Mrs. Carr's
Commissioner.
every classroom. And she approved
The commissioner
the
came.
learning. And then afterwards, she met with both our school staff, and she talked to us a little bit about the achievements that we had over the past couple of years. And she really, it was a great visit, and we enjoyed having her, and our students really enjoyed meeting with her and sharing all the learning that they're doing in our school. So it went really well. Thank you.
Thank you. That was wonderful. Thank you.
And the commissioner did call, she called me the next day to say she enjoyed herself, was very impressed with the staff at Fort Barton.
And she loved the new school. She thought it was
And everything that
fabulous.
we did, so. And again, it
Thanks
wasn't,
to
the
the
commissioner
citizens.
asked not for any fanfare, that's why we didn't contact the press or anything. She said she just wanted to go to visit, so it was, we abided by her wishes. As always, more than she's always welcome to come and
Of course. Thank
visit
you.
with us.
I have 3 quick things. I just want to congratulate the middle school on the wax museum that they put
Yes.
on.
It was fabulous.
Fabulous. Just, they did a great job. I want to congratulate the jazz band for placing for the first time at the prestigious Berkeley Jazz Festival. They placed 3rd. And I want to congratulate Tiverton High School cheerleaders who took 2nd in state and are now moving on to regionals.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And also the girls JV.
Oh,
basketball,
JV, undefeated.
Undefeated season in state,
Undefeated.
first in state. It's phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal.
And we had our annual pizza cook, healthy pizza
Oh, yeah, that was fun.
contest, and that was wonderful. Gerald DuPont came to be a judge. He graduated from here in the 1980s, so it was really fun for him to come back. And he's very successful. He's on TV and everything. So I told him, when you get too big, don't forget us. You're going to have to come here every year. And he spoke to the students about following their passion, which is so much of what he talks to me about all the time, keeping that program, keeping our career pathways so there's somewhere for everyone to fit in and be successful. And that's what we try to do in Tiverton. And talking all about these tests and taking all day to take tests, and when you see things like that,
Probably should.
and Coach Phillips with his building the boats, and then you see the wax museum, that took so much time and it was so impressive. And I'm so glad we're still hanging on to those things, because that's the real learning they'll never forget. So thank you for all
And just
of
one
that.
last thing, and I know we have to go to exec, is that Chief Blakey called late today. He asked if our folks down in the wood department could make a cane, because a lot of towns have a cane that they give to the oldest resident.
Oh, that's nice.
So I'll be
Yeah,
talking with
that'll
Mr.
be
Phillips
nice,
to have his students make one.
Oh,
So
that would be
Very
good.
nice.
That's a good
that
idea.
was the chief's idea, so I thought, we said, sure, be happy to collaborate with that.
Anybody else have anything? No? Okay. Executive session.
We need all 3?
We need to talk about Council 94, and we don't need to talk about C, A and B. It's up to the committee. I mean, I'd like to talk about A.
They're going,
Well,
I have
we'll
things
do
to
both.
pass out for C.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
have things to pass.
Oh, okay, so we're going to go into I make a motion that we go into executive session under 4246, 5A2, Council 94 negotiations, SS 162124, 1 and 2, safety protocols, and SS 4246, 5A2, possible litigation charter complaint.
Second?
All those in favor?